So anyway, I'm really grateful that you're all here for my book launch, and I'll go into that in a moment. It's been, my new book is more or less an autobiography called Raising My Frequency. And a lot of people here, because I've spoken to this group maybe 4 or 5 times over the years, know a lot of my spiritual stories, but don't know my regular life stories. That's the backdrop for all of the spiritual stuff. And Spirit has been poking me for years to write my journey, especially the back end journey of how I was put together with Claire Hartzong. So those of you, how many people have never heard me speak and don't know anything about me? Okay, so just a little bit of background. I'm not going to go very much in depth because most of you have heard this before, but I had a bizarre synchronistic journey where the universe from the other side of the veil had all of these synchronicities and bizarre things that put me together with Claire Hartzong. Claire Hartzong's a channel, and she channeled this book, Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, that was published in 2002, when Anna, who's the Virgin Mary's mother and Jesus' grandmother, appeared to her and said, "No one knows my story. Will you write my story?" And she's like, I don't think you want me. I got D's in English, you know? But no, she was the right person, and it took 10 years of the Councils of Light preparing her to be able to raise her vibration enough to receive these downloads. And it's a very, very, very different book than what we learn in Christianity. It's much more aligned with what people know as spiritual awakening today. And so she wrote this book. In a nutshell, at age 14, I kept questioning things. I was raised Catholic. I'm going, I don't like this. This sucks. Everybody's only concerned about what their kids are doing and what they're wearing, and, you know, where's the real seeking? Where's the devotion? So I ditched Catholicism as soon as I went away to college, you know. And I was still on a spiritual path, opening myself up to all kinds of information and metaphysics and channels. But anything remotely Christian, I'm not, nope, not going there, not going there. So the universe had to work really hard through these bizarre synchronistic events to get me together eventually with Claire Hartzong, which took over a 20-year period. So anyway, eventually I kept listening to my guidance, and through this synchronistic series of events, which is what I write about in my autobiography, which is Raising My Frequency, it's all about the bizarre things that happened to get me not only together with her, but on a whole different track in my life. And that's true for most of us that are waking up, or that know we're here for a reason. You know, we find that we're just being led through this often series of events that doesn't necessarily make sense in the moment. So anyway, I was eventually put together with Claire. I went to work as her personal assistant because she was looking for a spiritual partner and a business partner. And another friend of ours came to assist. She lived in Springdale, Utah at the time, outside of Zion National Park. So in 2006, we went to Springdale, Utah, because she knew that there was to be a sequel, there was to be a second book. But she had a temper tantrum, sort of, at one point with the Councils of Light and said, I'm not going to be sequestered away like a little monk, you know, doing the second book. Send me a support team. So little did we know we were the support team. You know, I mean, it's so bizarre how it all came about. So we went to Springdale. I mean, I'm kind of a geek, and I networked the computers, and I got all set up so we could support her endeavor in doing the second book. And she went in, this was after about 3 weeks, she finally went and sat down to start bringing through the information for the second book. And she came out a day later and said, it's really flat. It's not the same heightened energy that I experienced when I channeled Anna for the first book. So she asked Anna what the problem was. And Anna said, the answer lies outside the door. Go ask Catherine Ann for a regression, because I was trained with Dolores Cannon in quantum healing hypnosis techniques back in 2003. So Anna said for her to ask me for a regression session. So we used that format. I laid Claire down. We got all set up, got a tape recorder, and then these 19 different characters came through and brought through all of this controversial information about that time in their lives. So that's what eventually became the second book, which is the sequel to Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, which is called Anna, the Voice of the Magdalens. And Magdalens is plural because I learned from Anna when we were together at that time that Magdalene is an order of consciousness. It's not just an individual. And that most of us who resonate with this work and who are awakening, even though we've been known by different labels in different times, we're Magdalens, and we've trained in the temples for thousands of years, for lifetimes. And Magdalene is a group of different voices. And many of us today are Magdalens, and we don't even know it as that label. And it doesn't matter whether we know it or not. And the Magdalens showed me that their mission is that they seed the light. Wherever there's darkness, they go into the deepest, darkest places, whether it's a company or a family or a government or a situation, wherever there needs to be light, the Magdalens go and they go, I'll go. And they go, and they're the ones that hold the light and seed the light in the deepest, darkest places so it won't go out, which are most of us. And we don't understand who we are until we're really conscious of it. And oftentimes people don't understand why their lives have been really challenging and really difficult, not knowing who they are. So one of the things that I share in my book, in this long journey, I used to be involved with Ramtha. Those of you that know who Ramtha is an ascended master that Jay-Z Knight in Yelm, Washington channels. He appeared to her in 1978. And Ramtha basically was here to begin to teach us about ascension and teach us these things that weren't even out in the consciousness yet. So I was an early student of Ramtha. And I lost my train of thought. Anyway, it was through Ramtha that I started opening up to this stuff. And what had happened was, in a dialogue in 1982, Ramtha was talking about bums being some of the homeless people, being some of the most enlightened people on the planet. And, if we could get over our judgment and our bias, there's a lot we can learn from them. So that same day, my boyfriend and another friend and I walked out to the Boston Commons, because this was taking place in Boston, this workshop. And there was a bum sitting on the bench, across from us. And some of you I know have heard this story before. So anyway, he's looking all around like this and talking to himself and talking gibberish. And I looked at this guy, and all of a sudden I had this most a wave of, oh my God, who is this? You know, I didn't know why. And I was looking for my soulmate. It was so overwhelming. I thought, oh my God, could this bum, this homeless person, be my soulmate? You know? Like, I've never, ever before or since had a visceral reaction like that. And, you know, I never talked to homeless people. And he's looking all around and talking about some object in the sky. And I'm thinking, I wonder if he's talking about UFOs. You know, so then I find myself verbally out loud going, what object? And then he zeroed in on me, looked right through me, and said, wouldn't it be nice to hang upside down and swing like a bat? And I'm like, I think you're crazy, okay? So anyway, we continued this conversation off and on for about 45 minutes, and I go into that in several of my books, that experience, where people go through and there were pieces, it was like coded information. And what I didn't understand, this crazy encounter, were markers for the next 25 years on my timeline. All of these things that made no sense at the time were actually future markers that were putting me together with Claire. And when I read Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, and I talk about how that all came about when I was dead set against anything remotely Christian, I was led by the other side to this book. And I read at her afterword where she talks about meeting Saint Germain. And those of you who don't know who the Master Saint Germain is, this is a picture of him. I can pass it around if you want to. Anyway, so it turned out that this bum, and I share this all in my book, it took me 2 years to discover that he was Saint Germain. And there were different little pieces of information, but I couldn't put them together in the puzzle yet. And then I had an acquaintance, I lived in the Oregon coast at the time, who lived in Depot Bay, and he goes, if you're ever traveling north, stop by. Yeah. So I stopped by at his house. He had a tiny apartment with an incredible panoramic view of Depot Bay. And he got so excited when I knocked on his door, and he goes, here, you have to try this. So he brings me in, sits me down on the couch, has me take off my shoes, and puts these big fiberglass boots on my feet with a hook in the back. And I'm going, okay. So we had to use his dresser drawers at pulling the drawers out for me to use them like a step ladder, because he had a bar in his bedroom doorway, you know, about nose height or so. And he wanted me to hang, you know, put the hooks on the bar in his bedroom doorway. So he had to use his dresser for me to propel my bottom half high enough to get the hooks on the bar, right? So then he helps me down, and I'm now facing into his bedroom, and he gives me a push, right? And on the opposite wall is some 5-foot poster of some master. And I'm going, who's that? He goes, oh, that's Saint Germain. It took me, look at me, it took me to the next day to realize here I was, hanging upside down, swinging like a bat, the very first time I saw Saint Germain's image or heard, that I was aware of, or heard his voice in this lifetime. So there is an unfolding, bizarre, synchronistic series of events that happened over those 20 years that culminated in putting me together with Claire Hartzong. So when I finally read Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, even though it wasn't my subject matter, so I thought, in her afterword, she talks about meeting Saint Germain in a physical body in the Grand Tetons. And that was the first time I ever heard of anyone else meeting Saint Germain in a physical body. I'm sure it's happened, but I wasn't aware of anybody, you know, who had met him in an actual physical body other than in a meditation. So I contacted Claire and asked her if she'd be willing to share more about her experience, you know, so I could have some reference for my own. And I didn't hear anything for like 6 months or 8 months, and I'm going, well, who am I? I'm a peon who went to the bookstore and bought her book, right? But then, 8 months later, or whatever it was, she contacted me about a reading. I didn't even know she scheduled readings with Anna. I had no idea. She had a cancellation, and she scheduled a reading for me, and she called me up to see if I wanted that slot. And I'm going, what reading? I'm the one that wanted to know about your St. Germain experience. And then she got really emotional, and she goes, I think Anna really wants to speak to you. And I'm going, really? I'm the one that ditched all of you guys, you know,
Yeah.
at age 18. So that led to a whole other bizarre synchronistic series of events that unfolded that eventually put me together with Claire as her business and spiritual partner. But the Councils of Light had a whole different plan in mind. So instead of me just being the, you know, the office and technical assistant, their plan was that our threefold energy, me and Claire and our other friend who came to be her personal assistant, our energy was needed, and that through these characters coming through this regression session kind of format, brought through all of the controversial information. So that's how come Claire and I ended up co-authoring Anna, the Voice of the Magdalens together. And then we went on, she had a channeling, one from St. Germain and one from Portia, who's St. Germain's twin flame, that was in a book that was out of print from an Australian publisher called Twin Flames, Twin Souls, and Soulmates, I believe. And I said, this information needs to be out there. So I got permission from the Australian publisher to take those channeled portions. And then I went back through all of the tapes that I had of Anna, and I took out any information where she talked about relationships, and I put it together as Twin Flame Union, the Ascension of St. Germain and Portia, that became a book. It took 4 years for Claire to look at the manuscript to give me the go-ahead to publish it. So anyway, that's available back there, and it has a cosmic twin flame union meditation that Anna led, that I recorded in that also. So there began to be things. And then eventually Claire went into retreat. She just stopped being public at all. And I'm going, somebody has to shepherd this work. I mean, I had never spoken publicly. You know, I'm not the main author. So starting in 2011, I started doing talks and workshops about the Magdalens and the Anna books. And that eventually just took off into other things. In 2011, I also had a reading with somebody in Virgin, Utah, and they told me about these 12 different places around the globe that were divine feminine grids that needed to be awakened and activated. And I was given this information that I could lead groups of people to physically go to these places to activate the Magdalene grids. And I'm like, are you kidding? I've barely spoken. Hardly anyone knows who I am. The books had just come out. You know, I had no money. And I'm going, yeah. So I said to the Anna and the Councils of Light, you want me to do this? You get me to Europe, because I had to go to Chalice Well in Glastonbury. And it just so happened I had an ex-roommate who was a senior flight attendant with American. She was able to sell me a D3 pass, so I got myself there, and all of that is shared. of how the Magdalene grid activation started. And we actually physically did 9 out of what ended up being 13 places. Places like Egypt and Turkey and Australia, and I mean, it's just been a wild adventure. So I share all of that in the book, plus my own personal journey. So anyway, I've been getting nudged by my guides for years about writing this personal, account and this personal story of the back end of how everything came about. So I know Heather goes, well, I know your stories. And I'm going, well, no, you don't really know all of them, because I haven't written my personal journey that's very much part of the weave as well. And so I finally got this book done, and Claire, who took 4 years to read the Twin Flame Union manuscript, read it. I had like 10 beta readers, that I call them, that I shipped the manuscript out to, to read before it was published. And several of them are here today. Anyway, Claire read the whole thing in 2.5 days. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, she who took 4 years to read the other one. So anyway, she said the energy and the integration of energy and information was so much, she had to go to bed for like 3 days to integrate it. She goes, I had to go rest for 3 days to let it all integrate. And then she called me up and she said, how do you feel about me writing an afterword? I'm going, an afterword never even occurred to me, right? So she talked me into letting her write an afterword to the book. And then I thought, well, if I have an afterword, I guess I need a foreword by somebody, And I'm like racking my brains, who can I ask to write a foreword? And some people came to mind, and Finbar, who does these sacred site journeys. I had worked for Finbar back in 2007 through 2009. And now I'm working for Finbar again, as of the last 3 weeks part-time. But anyway, now I lost my train of thought again.
Finbar was leading you to... You're looking for somebody to do a forward.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I knew he was busy leading tours, so I kind of tuned in with my Councils of Light, and I kept saying, who should write the foreword? And they kept dropping Dr. Christiane Northrup's name in my head, and I'm like, are you kidding? She probably doesn't know me from Adam unless she's read the Voice of the Magdalene book, but it just wouldn't leave me alone. So finally I went, okay, fine. So I found a way to contact her. So I sent her a request in the end of June asking if she would consider writing a foreword to my book. And I shared, what the book was about. And an assistant got back to me and said, she can't promise that she can write a foreword, but if you send the manuscript, she might consider writing an endorsement. I thought, yeah, it'll be a miracle if I ever hear anything. I mean, she's so busy. Every time you go online, she's everywhere, So I waited, and I didn't hear anything, And then finally, I published the book. It was already sent to the printer at Ingram Spark, and I get an email a few weeks ago, about 2.5 weeks ago, and it was the endorsement from Dr. Northrup. And she said, raising my frequency is the quintessential hero's journey back to God and Source. Beautifully written through the author's own experience, it brings profound spiritual truths right into day-to-day life. As such, it is a field manual for what must be done in day-to-day life to bring heaven to earth. This is a book for our current great awakening here on the planet. Christiane Northrup, MD, New York Times bestselling author of Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, The Wisdom of Menopause, and Goddesses Never Age. So I was like blown away. I'm going, couldn't you have done it before I sent it to the printer? I mean, I've rectified that, so later things will come out with an abbreviated part on the cover. But, I mean, I was blown away. I didn't think I would hear it all from her. So I'm just very, very grateful for that. So, anyway, Jan, I know we were talking, a couple people wanted to say things that have read the book. Do you want to stand up and say something?
Yeah.
You can come up here.
Yeah, go up front so we can get you on the...
Okay.
You can stand behind my chair, actually, so you'll be in the frame, I think.
Okay.
Oh, that
Is this
is,
good?
That's good.
Okay. When I read the book, On a Grandmother of Jesus, it was one of the most amazing experiences I'd ever had in my life because I was constantly shifting the whole time I read the book. And I remember I emailed you about it because I just could not believe what was happening. And then I read the next book and that continued. And then I read your manuscript and it continued throughout Catherine Ann's manuscript. I could feel myself not only shifting, but one major thing that was shifting was my perspective of my life. And I was seeing my life differently because in Catherine Ann's book, when you look at her whole life, which was extremely difficult, when you get to the end, you can look at it and you can see if we had scales, like the human brain thinks of, that tells us, well, you came in with this core vibration of, say, maybe 2,000, and at the end of your life, it tells you what it was. Then Catherine Ann's book lets you look at your life from that perspective, and you can see how when you came in, it was here. Today, it's here, and when you leave, it's going to be here. And Catherine Ann's is just, I mean, I can't reach that far. But reading that is one of the most amazing experiences I've had in a long time. And so on 11/11, I sat down in my room, and every morning I do sacred breathing. And so I sat down, and I was not thinking about Catherine Ann. I was not thinking about her book. I wasn't thinking about Heather. I wasn't thinking about anybody. I was just concentrating on getting myself centered so I could do the sacred breathing. And then all of a sudden I have this really powerful thought. Catherine Ann's book is the modern Anna's book. This is the modern day Anna, grandmother of Jesus book.
of the initiate's journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is for everyone today. And I kept thinking about it, and I thought, yeah, I totally get that because I shifted so much while I was reading her book. And I realized that I'm in the process of reading, and I'm doing a class of the book, The Sophia Code. The Sophia Code, some of you may have read it, but it tells us that the old mystery schools where we had to go and swim with crocodiles, or alligators, or snakes, or something like that, that they are no more. that what has taken their place are our challenges in our everyday life. And then I started thinking about Catherine Ann's book, and I'm looking at the amazing challenges in her life, and then I thought, and look at my life, look at all of my challenges. And I realized that was true. That whereas the honor books show us the lives and the challenges that the Essenes led back then, that the Essenes today are facing different challenges and doing it beautifully, as you will see that Catherine Ann did. One thing that she talks about in her book that I was just amazed, and for me it's a really good example. My husband and I were in Kauai one time, and we went out on the Zodiac boats. And if you've been to Kauai and seen the Napali cliffs, they're about 4,000 feet high, I think, and they go straight up. And so we were out in a Zodiac boat and looking at the cliffs, and they were gorgeous, and our tour guide says, look at the people hiking the trail up there. And so you see people, that teeny tiny people, and they're going kind of like this. And with their backs right against the wall of the cliff, and they're going sideways because there's not enough room, I guess.
You're on a slope sideways like this.
Yeah, and my husband and I had heard about it, and we had talked about, did we want to do that hike? We immediately decided, no, we didn't want to do it. But Catherine Ann tells us all about her experiences hiking that trail in the book, and I just, unbelievable.
In Ked's sneakers.
Yeah.
I didn't even have hiking boots. I had hiked trails in Girl Scout camp in Connecticut. I had no idea what I was getting into. Anyway.
Wow.
So, for me, this is just an amazing book that allows me to see how beautifully designed our lives are, how it all goes together to help us get to the next point in our evolution. And Catherine Ann's story is amazing. It is a fascinating and really, for me, mesmerizing read. And I just strongly advise that every one of you read that book. It will change your life. You will see your life differently from here on out. And I thank you for writing it.
Well, thank you for sharing, Jan. I really appreciate it.
And I am so grateful I didn't have to hike the Napali Trail. God.
I did it for you, Jan.
I thank you. I thank you. That would have been pretty bad.
Yeah. Or pretty good, you know.
Well, I don't know, yeah. I was a lot younger then, so maybe.
Yeah. So, talking about this all, along with doing this book, I've known for years, I had information that my work was going to move into a different direction. And for like 5 years, I've been trying to figure out what on earth that is. You know, it's like, can you tell me already? I mean, I had a couple, people in readings mention that it would go into a whole different direction. I'm like, okay. Well, because mostly the people that, resonate with what I have to share in my work have been people who are, into the honor books and the whole Mary Magdalene, that whole thing. But it's a very small niche, really. And I knew that I needed to expand out beyond that group. And it's like, how does one do that? And what kept coming to me, like she said, the core essence is raising our vibration. So, and if you go online to all these different, metaphysical and spiritual people and channels, they're all talking about vibration and frequency. So got really strongly, even though it was a real stretch for me financially to do this, is I patented or trademarked frequency raising. So I got the trademark. I did, yes. And anyway, I realized that's the whole new shift, that everything that's going on right now in our world is so crazy and so chaotic. And we ask, what can we do? And we're all being asked to raise our frequency. And that means looking at everything that we think, we say, we feel, we do, and just becoming aware initially, and then making different choices. And as I've been working on this, I realized that frequency, when you raise your frequency, it's not like something you set out to accomplish. It's more like you just become aware of what's around you and what you're doing in your life. And it's more of a state of being, so you have to make different choices about your words, about your feelings. You know, we can make, and especially lately, I've had to do this a lot. So my challenges have not ended with writing this book. They've actually intensified. So just as an example, I mean, at every turn trying to get this book out, I've had obstacles every single day. And I'm going, can I get a rest? So can I coast a little bit, at least a couple days? So like an example is I've been putting it out because I know that tens of thousands of books get published on Amazon, like practically every day. And, you know, you put something out, I mean, you're just buried, right? And so you really have to do marketing and things. And what people do is they put it out for like 99 cents, you know, for a day or 2-day period to boost the ratings on Amazon. So I'm in the middle of this right now where, you know, I've been putting it out to my mailing list and Facebook and whatever, that I would make a special promotional offer for people to buy the digital version for 99 cents for these 2 days, you know, to help boost the ratings, even if you've already purchased a print book. So come to find out, when I went to implement it last night, Amazon wouldn't let me do that. Amazon says I have to charge a minimum of $2.99. And you can charge 99 cents, but you have to enroll in what they call KDP Select. And I couldn't do that, and I didn't want to do that because I initially published my book and the digital book with Ingram Spark. Well, Ingram, I mean, this is just a long explanation. Ingram Spark has a policy that if you've uploaded anything to Amazon in the past year, you're ineligible to have them supply Amazon. So I had to do Amazon separately. So then when I went to do Amazon, right, so I set it up on Amazon, I'm limited. I can't do anything other than the U.S., first of all, because it's a conflict of interest with the worldwide rights of Ingram, because that's initially where I was publishing it. So I could only do the U.S. rights, and I thought, okay, I can live with that. Well, I come to put up 99 cents to change it for the 2 days, and Amazon won't let me. They're telling me I have to charge $2.99. And I can't qualify for KDP Select because I have it available on another platform. So I didn't know this, so I put out all of this promotional advertising for 99 cents. Now I'm getting emails of people mad and complaining, and even though I've tried to put, I mean, this kind of thing has gone on every single day with every single step I've taken. I must have done, I don't know, I kept being rejected both by Amazon and Ingram for the covers. I must have done 50 covers, you know, trying to get everything right and not be rejected. I mean, and it gets rejected from low resolution images, and I've gone through all my hundreds of images like 10 times, checking, you know. So that's what I mean by obstacles. I feel like those punching bags, you know, the weight in the bottom, and they just get punched down every day. I mean, I've gone through this other books and other things, but this has been ridiculous, you know. And I don't know, I'm going, okay, Spirit, I'm ready to just change the programming of this whole thing, you know. It's just been like unbelievable trying to get it out. So I'm going, yeah, you start talking about frequency raising, the universe is going to test you on every single thing. So I'm in the middle. I mean, I was so frustrated last night, I almost walked away from the whole thing. You know, I was really tempted. I know. So I'm going, okay, yep, I know I'm living it. How do I shift my frequency? You know, so it's really having me dig deep, you know, to change my thought, change what and I've been really quiet with all my friends because they tell me I complain about all of these things, so I just been, you know, and just dealing with it myself. But, you know, we're all going through this, especially these days, you know. And I wanted to share something. Just a second here. One of my little books on I have an awakening series, which I've only actually written 2 of the 5 books yet. But this is the second one called Finding Your Inner Jewel, How to Access Your Authentic Self. And I just wanted to share a little bit. This was a download that I had probably 12 years ago. And I'll just read this because I kind of wrote about it in here. Not only is humanity going through a shift of consciousness, but our planet, the sun, and our solar system are also undergoing a major shift as well. Mother Earth is a sentient, intelligent being of light who is in her own ascension process, raising her vibration as well. Several years ago, my councils of light showed me intense light coming to the surface from the core of Mother Earth, along with new, never-before-seen waves of light and energy coming from the heavens to planet Earth. The result of light coming from these 2 opposing directions is acting like a garbage compactor on the surface of the planet. This light compacts and intensifies all the negativity swept under the rug and hidden for eons. Everything that is out of alignment with love and integrity and is a product of egos running amok is being magnified so we can't ignore or deny it any longer. This is what I refer to as the shit of the shift. This magnification of negativity is happening in every aspect and corner of reality, in individuals, companies, corporations, organizations, schools, religions, institutions, industries, politics, governments, and nations. All we need do is watch the news to see the latest expose of corruption, manipulation, and deceit the powers that be allow us to see, and to do research on the internet for unbiased news and accounts of the deep state and cover-ups foisted on people. This is all coming to light now because the vibration level of this negativity is no longer supported, condoned, or tolerated in this rising vibration of the shift of consciousness. All is being exposed so we can shed the darkness, heal ourselves, and make different choices for the upliftment and good of all, not only an elite select few. It is up to each one of us to start this process in our own lives, in our own backyards, cleaning up our own consciousness and negativity. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. So that's kind of the basis of this idea of frequency raising. And I have a new website called Frequency Raising where I share all of this and just asking people to start thinking about it. I don't know how it's going to unfold yet, but I just feel that that's the next direction that we're all being asked to become aware of. And we all can do our part. You don't have to be a writer or a public speaker or anybody out publicly. What people don't really understand is that everything is holographic. When we do something within our own selves, it holographically impacts the whole, not just on planet Earth, but the whole of everything, because we're part of the holographic tapestry. So the more we're able to raise our own vibration, and of course it's going to fluctuate because we're human, right? We're learning how to pay attention and how to do this. But the more we can do that, the more we begin to holographically impact the whole, as the whole impacts us. So, there is no out there. Whatever is going on that we're aware of out in the world, we can look and take our own responsibility for. So, anyway, so I realize that's the new shift of the direction of the work that, applies to everybody, not just the people interested in, the Holy Family or Anna or the Magdalens. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Or ask me about the other books? Yeah?
Go ahead.
Oh, what is the name of the book, did you say?
Which one?
The one in your hand that you read?
It's called Finding Your Inner Jewel,
Okay.
How to Access Your Authentic Self. And this is the book 2 of the Awakening series. The first one is This All There Is?
I love that.
And it's a little book. These started out as ebooks, and then, so many people wanted printed book versions. So what I've done in the last year is, made the ebooks into printed book versions, which is why I wasn't able to do, the KDP Select with, the thing with Lightning Spark, that published my new book, supplying Amazon, because I've done all of these books in the last year. So I was in a catch-22 on both ends,
Mercury retrograde.
Oh.
Forever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So anyway, and I just have to be okay with, making people upset. And, I'm having a real lesson in all of that.